It was Christmas Eve, and the city streets were alive with lights and the sound of cheerful music. People bustled around carrying bags filled with last-minute gifts, laughing and hurrying home to join their families. The cold winter air was sharp, but there was a warmth in the atmosphere that made everyone feel connected, even strangers walking past each other. Among the crowd, a man and a woman were about to have an encounter that neither of them would ever forget. The man was a single father, carrying his daughter's small hand in his. He had learned over the past few years how to manage life on his own, juggling work and raising his child. Today, he was tired from the weeks-long hours, but he was determined to make this Christmas special. He had promised his daughter they would get hot chocolate at the local coffee shop and maybe a small treat for her favorite toy. She held his hand tightly, her little boots tapping against the icy pavement. Her eyes wide with excitement at the lights and decorations all around. The woman, also a single mother, walked briskly down the street, her daughter clinging to her side. She had spent the day running errands, picking up a few gifts, and preparing for a quiet evening with her child. Her heart felt heavy. The holidays reminded her of what she missed and what she longed for, and this year it had been particularly difficult. As she passed by the decorated shop windows, she tried to smile, hiding the worry that lingered in her thoughts. She was hoping that a cup of warm coffee might ease the stress and give her a moment of peace. The coffee shop was small and crowded, filled with the smell of freshly brewed coffee and sweet pastries. A long line had formed, and people chatted about their plans and gifts. The man stepped inside first, holding the door open for his daughter, who looked around with curiosity and wonder. The woman followed behind, carrying her daughter on her hip, maneuvering through the tight space as best as she could. Their eyes met briefly as they both reached for the counter at the same time, and a small smile passed between them. Neither said anything, but there was a moment of recognition, a sense that something was different about this encounter. He ordered 2 hot chocolates, careful to make sure his daughter got the whipped cream on top just the way she liked. She bounced on her toes in anticipation, her small voice filled with excitement. She had been talking about this little treat all day, and now finally it was here. The man handed her the cup, watching her take a careful sip and smile with pure joy. There was something about seeing his child happy that made his heart warm, despite the chill outside. The woman, standing nearby, noticed how tenderly he watched his daughter. She couldn't help but feel a little pang of something she hadn't expected. It was not just kindness. It was a kind of care and attention that she recognized. She ordered her own coffee and looked around for a place to sit. The shop was crowded, and the only available seat was at the same small table where he and his daughter had already set up. She hesitated, unsure if she should ask, but then her daughter tugged at her coat, pointing toward the empty chair. With a small laugh, she approached and asked politely if she could join them. He looked up, slightly surprised, but nodded with a friendly smile. The 2 children immediately took notice of each other. They exchanged shy smiles and began to chatter quietly about the holiday decorations in the shop, the ornaments they had seen outside, and the excitement of Christmas morning. Their laughter filled the small space, creating a bubble of joy around the table. The adults watched them, feeling a strange sense of comfort and connection. They began to talk, starting with simple words about the weather, the crowds, and the shop's cozy atmosphere. It was easy at first, casual, like 2 strangers making polite conversation, but as they continued, the conversation deepened, revealing small details about their lives, their challenges, and their hopes. He learned that she worked long hours during the week and was trying her best to make the holidays special for her daughter, just as he did. She learned that he had been raising his child alone for a few years, and that this season was particularly important to him. There was an understanding between them, recognition of shared struggles and the determination to provide happiness for their children despite everything else. They spoke quietly, careful not to disturb the children, but with a growing sense of familiarity and ease. As they talked, a small accident happened. His daughter, in her excitement, leaned over too far and knocked her cup slightly, spilling hot chocolate on the table. The woman reacted quickly, grabbing a napkin and helping him clean up. In the process, her coffee sloshed a little, and some spilled onto her own coat. They both laughed, slightly embarrassed, and their laughter seemed to break any remaining tension. It was a small, ordinary mishap, but it felt strangely significant, like fate had nudged them together. After the spill, they settled back into their seats, sipping their drinks more carefully this time. The conversation turned to lighter topics: favorite Christmas songs, memories from childhood holidays, and the little joys that made the season special. They shared stories of family traditions, favorite foods, and small moments that made them smile. There was a warmth in the exchange, a sense that they could talk freely and be themselves without judgment. For the first time in a long while, both felt a flicker of happiness that wasn't just for their children but for themselves too. Time passed quickly, unnoticed by either of them. The shop was still busy, but they were in their own little world, surrounded by the sounds of laughter and the scent of coffee. The children had grown comfortable with each other, playing quietly at the edge of the table, sharing small toys they had brought along. There was a sense of innocence in their interactions, a simple joy that reminded the adults of what was truly important during this season. Watching the children, they felt a connection not just with each other, but through their shared role as parents, trying to protect and nurture these small lives with love and care. Eventually, the time came to leave. The man stood first, helping his daughter with her coat and making sure she had her gloves and hat. The woman did the same, gathering her belongings and lifting her daughter onto her hip. They exchanged smiles, a quiet understanding passing between them. Neither wanted the moment to end, yet the world outside called them back. They walked to the door together, the cold air rushing in, contrasting sharply with the warmth they had just felt inside. They lingered for a moment, hesitant to part ways, and in that pause, something unspoken passed between them, a recognition that this meeting was special. Even if it was brief, they said their goodbyes, polite, but with a hint of hope. Each returned to their own path, stepping into the city streets filled with lights and music. Carrying with them the memory of this unexpected encounter, the children held their parents' hands, unaware of the significance of the meeting but delighted by the shared moments and laughter. The man and the woman walked away, glancing back once, each feeling a sense of anticipation, a quiet curiosity about what might come next. That night, as they went home to prepare for Christmas, the memory of the coffee shop lingered. He thought about her smile, the kindness in her eyes, and the easy way she had connected with his daughter. She thought about the warmth he had shown his child, the patience and care in his voice, and the laughter that had filled the space. Both wondered if it was simply a fleeting holiday moment or something more, a beginning they could not yet name. As the snow began to fall softly outside, blanketing the city in a peaceful white, neither could have predicted what the future held. But in that quiet, magical moment on Christmas Eve, something had shifted. A simple accident, a spilled cup of hot chocolate, and the shared laughter of children had created a spark. And sometimes, sparks like that can grow into something life-changing. Even if it begins in the most ordinary of places on the most ordinary of days. Few days after that unexpected meeting at the coffee shop, the man and the woman were surprised to find themselves at the same community Christmas charity event. Neither had planned it, but life had a way of bringing them together again. The event was held at a small local hall, decorated with twinkling lights, colorful ribbons, and a big Christmas tree standing proudly in the center. The sound of children singing carols and laughter filled the air. Volunteers were busy organizing games, distributing small gifts, and serving warm snacks. The man entered first, holding his daughter's hand. She ran ahead excitedly, her eyes lighting up at the decorations and the crowd. He watched her with a mixture of pride and amusement, remembering how quickly she had warmed up to new places and people. He had expected to spend the evening quietly, helping her enjoy the activities, and perhaps chatting with a few other parents. But he wasn't prepared for what would happen next. The woman arrived shortly after, carrying her daughter in her arms. Her little one pointed eagerly at the tree, the lights, and the volunteers handing out cookies. The mother smiled softly, feeling a sense of relief that they had made it to the event without any trouble. Her mind wandered to the coffee shop encounter, and she couldn't help but wonder if he would be there. She scanned the room, and then she saw him, standing near the refreshments table, talking with another parent. Their eyes met across the crowd, and she felt a flutter of recognition. He smiled, a small, friendly smile, and waved slightly. She returned it, her heart beating a little faster. The children, now aware of each other's presence, ran to the play area where volunteers had set up games and crafts. Their laughter and excitement drew the parents closer together. He approached, offering a polite greeting, and she responded warmly. Conversation flowed naturally this time, more easily than before. They exchanged small jokes, comments about the crowd, and observations about the decorations. There was a comfort in the familiarity, as if this meeting was meant to happen. They moved toward the refreshment table together, each carrying a child. They talked about how they had spent the past few days, the little joys and challenges of parenting, and the holiday preparations. He learned that she had managed to finish her shopping and even baked a few cookies with her daughter. She learned that he had wrapped presents late into the night, making sure everything was ready for his child. There was a shared understanding of the effort it took to make the holidays special for children, and both admired the dedication each had for their own child. The event continued. Filled with games, music, and activities, the children eagerly participated, dragging their parents into different areas. He helped his daughter paint a small wooden ornament, showing her how to hold the brush carefully, while she encouraged her little one to decorate a paper star. The mother's daughter giggled at the messy paint and the joy of creating something with her mother. Watching the children, the man and the woman realized how easily the kids had bonded. They shared smiles, observing how naturally the two families fit together. Even though they were just beginning to know one another, during a lull in the activities, they found themselves sitting side by side on a small bench near the Christmas tree. The children played nearby, chatting happily. Conversation between the adults turned more personal. He spoke about the challenges of raising a child alone, the moments of loneliness, and the weight of responsibility. She listened attentively, nodding in understanding, and shared her own experiences. The long hours of work and the quiet evenings when she worried about providing enough for her daughter, neither felt the need to hide their vulnerabilities, and in that honesty, a quiet connection began to grow. At one point, one of the volunteers asked the adults to help with a small activity. They were paired together to supervise a group of children making paper snowflakes. As they worked side by side, folding and cutting, they laughed at the mistakes and cheered the successes. The activity became an opportunity for them to see each other's patience, kindness, and sense of humor. They noticed the little things, the way he encouraged children gently, the way she kept her cool despite the chaos, the way they both found joy in small successes. These observations deepened the growing admiration between them as the evening went on. A brief snow began to fall outside, the flakes drifting through the windows and landing softly on the city streets. The children ran to the windows, pressing their faces against the glass, amazed by the gentle snowfall. They begged their parents to let them go outside for a moment, and the adults agreed. Bundled in coats, scarves, and gloves, the families stepped into the cold night. The city was transformed into a winter wonderland, the lights reflecting on the snow-covered streets. The children ran and laughed, building small snowmen and catching flakes on their tongues. The adults followed, laughing at the playful chaos, sharing warmth and smiles despite the cold. In that moment, the man and the woman felt a quiet magic. There was no rush, no pressure, just the simple joy of being with their children and experiencing a little happiness together. They shared stories about past Christmases, small traditions from their childhood, and the memories that made the season special. The conversation flowed effortlessly, punctuated by laughter and the occasional shiver from the cold. They discovered similarities in their parenting styles, their sense of humor, and even their love for small, unexpected moments. The night continued with more activities inside the hall, singing, storytelling, and gift exchanges. The children were thrilled, and the adults found themselves enjoying the event more than they had expected. They realized that being together felt natural, like a puzzle piece that fit perfectly without forcing it. The conversation shifted to hopes and dreams, and they spoke quietly about the future, not just their own, but for the children. They began to imagine what it would be like if their families spent more time together, if these fleeting moments of joy became something more lasting. As the event came to an end, the families walked back to the street, their hearts warmed by the evening's experiences. The snow had stopped, leaving a peaceful white blanket over the city. They paused for a moment, watching the children play with the last of the snow, laughing and shouting with pure delight. The adults exchanged a glance, a silent acknowledgement that something meaningful had started. Neither knew exactly what it was, but there was a feeling of hope. A sense that this meeting was no longer just by chance, before parting ways. They promised to stay in touch, exchanging numbers and agreeing to meet again soon. There was an unspoken excitement, a curiosity about what could come next. The children held hands briefly, waving goodbye, their innocent joy echoing in the adults' hearts. As they walked in opposite directions, both the man and the woman felt a warmth that lingered long after the event had ended. They thought about the laughter, the shared moments, and the simple magic of Christmas Eve bringing them together once more that night. As they tucked their children into bed, they couldn't stop thinking about the encounter. The memory of shared laughter, snowflakes, and tiny hands holding each other's was vivid and comforting. Both reflected on how unexpected meetings could create lasting impressions and how the joy of the children brought them closer than either could have imagined. The sense of hope grew quietly, like a small flame flickering in the darkness, hinting at something more to come. Little did they know, this second meeting was only the beginning. The spark that started with a spilled cup of hot chocolate had grown, fueled by shared experiences, laughter, and the gentle recognition of kindred spirits. Christmas had brought them together twice, and with it came the possibility of a story neither had anticipated. A story that would touch their hearts and, in time, the hearts of their children as well. The days following the Christmas charity event were filled with quiet anticipation. Both the man and the woman found themselves thinking about the evening more often than they expected. Their children talked about the fun they had with their new friend, excitedly recalling every game, every snowflake, and every shared laugh. It was the children's enthusiasm that pushed them to reach out to each other again. They began exchanging messages, short and simple at first, checking in on each other, sharing small updates, and arranging playdates for their daughters. The first few messages were cautious, polite, and almost hesitant. Yet there was something comforting in the exchange. They shared little moments of their days, a funny thing their child had said, a small victory in managing homework, or a quiet observation about life as a parent. Each message, though short, carried warmth and care. They began to look forward to these digital conversations as a small bright spot in their daily routines. Their daughters, meanwhile, were growing closer. They would play together at parks, in living rooms, and even during small outings. The man and the woman watched as their children's friendship blossomed, seeing the joy it brought to both of them. It wasn't long before they realized that this connection wasn't just between the children. It was quietly shaping a bond between the adults as well. Each small shared experience deepened their understanding of each other's personalities, patience, and values. One weekend, they arranged a trip to a nearby winter festival. The city park was transformed with holiday lights, small booths offering treats, and a skating rink where children and adults enjoyed the cold air and the sparkle of decorations. The children ran ahead, their laughter echoing through the park, while the adults followed, carrying bags of snacks and gloves for little hands. Walking together, they spoke in a soft, comfortable rhythm. They talked about their favorite childhood memories of winter, the little traditions they hoped to pass on to their daughters, and the small victories that made life as a single parent meaningful at the ice skating rink. The man offered to help the woman's daughter, steadying her as she tried to balance on the skates. She laughed at the awkward movements, her cheeks flushed with cold and excitement. He smiled, encouraging her gently, showing patience and kindness that warmed her heart. Watching him, the woman realized how naturally he connected with children, not just her daughter, but his own as well. It was a comforting sight. Seeing someone so devoted to the happiness of a child, the children decided to try the carousel next. They begged their parents to ride with them, and both adults agreed. As the music played and the carousel spun, they laughed at the silly faces the children made, pointing at the painted horses and shouting with delight. In those moments, conversation was light and playful, punctuated by shared laughter. There was no need for deep topics or careful words. They simply enjoyed being in the same space, noticing how easy it was to exist together without pretense. Over the following weeks, their interactions became more regular. They met at playgrounds, libraries, and coffee shops. Each meeting was filled with small routines, like sharing snacks, reading stories, or watching the children play. The woman admired his calm and patient nature, how he listened not just to words but to feelings. He noticed her warmth, her ability to find joy in small moments, and her dedication to her child's happiness. Slowly, without either of them realizing it fully, trust began to grow. They also discovered shared interests and values. Both cared deeply about family, honesty, and kindness. Both understood the importance of nurturing children with love and patience. They talked quietly about these things in moments when the children were occupied, sharing personal reflections on life, hopes, and dreams. Each conversation revealed another layer of their personalities, and they began to feel a growing comfort in each other's presence. One evening, they arranged a small dinner at a local casual restaurant. Their children were thrilled to sit together, chatting about school, holidays, and favorite treats. The adults took a quiet table nearby, talking over the soft hum of conversation and clinking dishes. They spoke about work, about the challenges and joys of parenting, and about the subtle beauty in ordinary life. There was laughter, gentle teasing, and moments of silence that felt comfortable rather than awkward. It was during these moments that both realized how rare and meaningful this connection was. As winter progressed, the man and the woman noticed a subtle change in their feelings. It was not sudden or overwhelming, but it was their gentle warmth, a sense of anticipation, and a curiosity about each other that went beyond friendship. They found themselves thinking about the other person during the day, wondering how their day was going and hoping for a message or a small sign of connection. There was a delicate tension, a sense of possibility, but neither rushed or forced it. They respected the pace of their growing bond. Their daughters, meanwhile, became inseparable companions. They would spend hours together, sharing toys, stories, and dreams. Their innocent joy and trust became a bridge between the adults. Man and the woman began to see how naturally their families fit together, how their children's happiness was intertwined, and how shared experiences created a growing sense of closeness. The children's simple friendship was teaching them lessons about patience, understanding, and the gentle unfolding of love. They also faced small challenges together, scheduling conflicts, differences in routines, and the unpredictability of parenting required cooperation and compromise. Each time they navigated these minor obstacles, their respect for each other deepened. They discovered that working together to ensure the children's happiness brought a sense of unity, a feeling of being part of something larger than themselves. It was not always easy, but the effort strengthened the connection between them. One afternoon, while taking the children to a nearby park, they shared a quiet moment. The children were chasing each other, laughing and shouting in the crisp winter air. The man and the woman sat on a bench, sipping warm drinks, watching them play. They spoke softly about life, their hopes, and the small joys that often went unnoticed. There was a sense of comfort, a recognition that they were slowly building a foundation for something meaningful. They didn't label it or rush it, but they both felt the presence of something important growing between them. As the days passed, they began to imagine future activities together, small outings and shared celebrations. They talked about future holidays, birthday parties, and moments of joy for the children. Each plan was a subtle step in deepening their bond, a shared investment in a life that was slowly blending together. They learned to enjoy the process, valuing the small moments, appreciating the natural unfolding of connection. One evening, after a playdate at the woman's apartment, they walked the children to the nearby park to enjoy the last light of the day. The sky was painted with soft shades of pink and gold, and the air had a quiet stillness. They walked side by side, their children skipping ahead, chatting excitedly. Conversation between the adults was calm and reflective. They shared thoughts on life, parenting, and the unexpected joys of connection. There was a gentle intimacy in their words, recognition that they were discovering something rare and precious. By now, both the man and the woman had realized that their lives had subtly shifted. The connection they shared was growing stronger. shaped by shared experiences, laughter, and the gentle influence of their children. They were learning to trust each other, to find comfort in one another's presence, and to see the potential for something meaningful. There was no rush, no need to define it prematurely, just a quiet unfolding that felt natural and right. As winter deepened, they continued to spend time together, their bond strengthening with each meeting. The children's laughter remained at the center of it all, a constant reminder of the joy and love that had brought them together. The man and the woman found themselves looking forward to the next encounter, the next shared moment, and the gentle promise of something more. It was a slow, beautiful process, a story unfolding in small gestures, laughter, and quiet reflections, guided by the innocence and joy of their children. It was a quiet evening in early January when something happened that neither of them expected. The man and the woman had arranged a small gathering at a local park, letting their daughters play while they sat on a nearby bench, sharing warm drinks and chatting. The winter air was crisp, but the soft golden light from nearby street lamps added a gentle glow to the scene. The children ran and laughed, making small piles of snow and tossing tiny snowballs at each other. The sight brought smiles to both parents' faces, who watched them with a mixture of amusement and tenderness. They were talking about everyday matters, the simple joys and small frustrations that came with life as single parents. The conversation was easy, comfortable, flowing naturally from topic to topic. They spoke about work, their children's routines, and little moments that had made them laugh recently. There was a sense of intimacy developing between them, subtle, but undeniable, strengthened by shared experiences and the familiarity that had grown over the past few weeks. Neither had admitted it aloud yet, but a quiet curiosity was building, a sense of wanting to know more about each other and the life they were creating together. Their daughters suddenly ran over to the bench, giggling and pointing to something in the snow. They had found a small frozen puddle and were attempting to make tiny snow angels together. The man and the woman watched, laughing quietly at the children's antics. There was a moment of silence, just observing the simple joy of the scene. When the younger one, a little shy but full of innocence, whispered something that would change everything, she tugged gently at her mother's sleeve and then looked at the man with wide, hopeful eyes. "I hope we can be a family," she said softly. The words hung in the air, simple and innocent, but heavy with meaning. Both parents were taken aback, their hearts tightening in ways they had not anticipated. The child did not understand the depth of what she had said, but her small wish carried a profound weight. It was a gentle nudge from the universe, a reminder that sometimes children see and feel more than adults realize. In that moment, the man and the woman looked at each other, silently acknowledging that this was more than a passing connection. It was a possibility, a chance for something deeper. They smiled at the child, kneeling down to brush a stray strand of hair from her face and assure her that her wish was heard. There was warmth in the moment, a shared understanding that their bond was not just about them, but about creating a nurturing environment for their children. The simple, heartfelt words of the little girl made them realize how interconnected their lives had already become and how much they had started to care for each other and for the idea of a blended family. As the evening continued, they walked with the children along a snowy path lined with glowing holiday decorations left over from Christmas. The soft crunch of snow underfoot was accompanied by the sound of the children laughing and pointing at icicles and lights. They talked quietly, discussing future plans and sharing small dreams about the children's lives and the possibility of spending more time together. There was a gentle shift in the conversation, from casual updates to quiet reflections on what this growing connection meant. The woman shared how she had felt lonely during past holidays, wishing for someone who understood the challenges of single parenthood. The man nodded, admitting that he too had felt the weight of raising a child alone and the longing for companionship and shared joy. Neither spoke about love explicitly, but the words they exchanged carried the weight of hope and desire. Found comfort in each other's honesty and the realization that they were not alone in their struggles. Their daughters continued to play, unaware of the full depth of the adults' emotions. But their presence was a constant reminder of why the bond mattered. Each small gesture, laugh, and shared glance between the adults was influenced by their concern for the children's happiness. They realized that the potential for a family was already forming organically, guided by mutual care, understanding, and love for their children. Later, as the sky grew darker, they stopped at a small cafe for hot drinks and a snack. Sitting across from each other, they spoke more openly about their fears and hopes. They acknowledged the past difficulties, the mistakes, and the moments of doubt that had shaped them. Yet, in the same breath, they talked about the possibility of building something new, a life that included both families. There was vulnerability in their words, but also the courage to imagine a future that was different from the past. The children, excited from the day's adventures, chatted and laughed at the table, occasionally interrupting with questions or jokes. Watching them, both adults realized how much joy could come from simple togetherness. They began to discuss little traditions they could create, from weekend outings to bedtime stories, imagining ways to blend their families and strengthen the bond that had grown over the past few weeks. The thought was both exciting and slightly intimidating, but they were willing to take it one step at a time. Walking home together, the air filled with the soft hush of snow, they talked about practical matter schedules, activities, and plans for the coming weeks. Yet beneath the surface of logistics, there was an unspoken understanding, a quiet acknowledgement that their lives were slowly merging. They found comfort in each other's presence, in the knowledge that they could support one another and create a nurturing environment for their children that night. After tucking their children into bed, both adults reflected on the day. The little girl's whisper had acted as a catalyst, making them aware of the depth of their feelings and the possibilities ahead. It was a reminder that sometimes the smallest voices carry the greatest truths. They realized that what had started as an accidental meeting on Christmas Eve had grown into a meaningful connection, guided by laughter, shared experiences, and the quiet insight of their children. In the days that followed, they continued to spend time together, planning small outings, play dates, and quiet moments where they could simply be present with each other and the children. The bond continued to grow, shaped by trust, patience, and the mutual understanding that they were building something special. They learned to navigate the delicate balance of blending lives, respecting each other's pasts, focusing on the joy of the present. With each passing week, the sense of possibility strengthened. The children's happiness became a shared priority, and the adults found themselves naturally working together to create an environment of warmth, love, and stability. The whisper of a small child had opened their hearts, guiding them toward a future filled with hope and the quiet certainty that love, when nurtured with care, could grow unexpectedly yet beautifully. By the end of the month, they had established routines that included shared meals, small adventures, and time spent simply enjoying the company of one another. There was laughter, occasional challenges, and moments of deep reflection, but through it all, the connection between them strengthened. The children's bond remained at the heart of it, a guiding force that reminded the adults of the importance of care, patience, and love in the quiet moments. When they looked at each other across the room or shared a knowing glance, they felt a profound sense of connection. They had moved beyond mere friendship toward the possibility of something enduring. The whisper that had changed everything had revealed the truth that sometimes love begins quietly, gently, and unexpectedly, shaping lives in ways that neither could have imagined, yet both were ready to embrace. A year had passed since that first accidental meeting in the coffee shop on Christmas Eve. The city streets were once again alive with lights, music, and the bustling energy of people preparing for the holiday. But for the man, the woman, and their daughters, this Christmas was different. They had spent the past year growing closer, sharing laughter, challenges, and quiet moments that had shaped their lives. What had begun as a chance encounter had blossomed into a bond that felt natural, comforting, and full of hope. The man and the woman arrived at the city park together, each carrying their children's coats and small gifts for a local holiday event. The air was crisp, and the snow sparkled under the glow of streetlights. The children ran ahead, full of excitement, chatting about the activities they had planned. They were no longer just friends, they had become like sisters, inseparable in their joy and playful mischief. The parents followed, smiling at their children's happiness, feeling a warmth that came from knowing they had helped create it as they approached the event. They noticed familiar faces from last year's charity gathering. Volunteers waved, greeting the families warmly. The children rushed to participate in games and activities, while the adults exchanged quiet greetings and then found a small spot on a nearby bench. The conversation flowed easily, reflecting the familiarity that had grown over the months. They shared stories of small victories, parenting challenges, and the simple joys of watching their children thrive. There was laughter, gentle teasing, and a quiet satisfaction in being together. The children, eager to show their creativity, moved to a craft table where they decorated ornaments and small figurines. The adults watched, offering encouragement and guidance while allowing the children to express themselves freely. The laughter and excitement of the children created an atmosphere of warmth and connection. The man and the woman exchanged glances, realizing how naturally their families had blended. The shared experiences of the past year had created a sense of unity, one that felt effortless and genuine as the evening progressed. The parents took turns participating in the activities with their daughters. They built small snowmen, played in the freshly fallen snow, and shared warm drinks from a nearby stand. The children's laughter echoed through the park, drawing smiles from other families and volunteers. Watching the interactions, the man and the woman felt a profound sense of satisfaction and gratitude. They had not only found a connection with each other, but had also created a nurturing, joyful environment for their children during a quieter moment. They sat on a bench, sipping their drinks and watching the children play. The woman shared a memory from the previous year, the first Christmas Eve, when they had met by chance in the coffee shop. They laughed about the spilled hot chocolate and the awkward introductions that had led to the friendship that had grown over the months. It was a reminder of how unexpected moments could change the course of life, and how something as simple as a smile or a small gesture could have lasting effects. The man nodded, reflecting on how far they had come. He spoke about the challenges of the past year, the adjustments they had made, and the moments of doubt they had overcome. But he also spoke about the joy of seeing their children happy, the comfort of having someone to share the journey with, and the quiet strength they had found in each other. There was an honesty in their conversation that was unforced, genuine, and deeply connecting. As night fell, the park became even more magical. Twinkling lights on trees, soft music from a small stage, and the gentle falling snow created an atmosphere of enchantment. The children, now tired from the day's activities, held their parents' hands and walked together, forming a small, happy group. The adults exchanged a look, a silent acknowledgement of how far they had come and how much they had grown together. The whispered wish from a child months ago had become a guiding force, showing them the possibilities of family, love, and shared life. They decided to take the children to a small carousel nearby. The music played, and the lights reflected in the children's eyes as they laughed and pointed at the painted horses. The adults joined in, spinning slowly with the children, sharing in the joy and delight. It was a moment of pure happiness, where the past year's challenges seemed distant, replaced by the simple beauty of being together. They realized that love could be built slowly, quietly, and that the bonds of family were often formed in ordinary moments, made extraordinary by care and attention. Later, as they walked through the snow-covered streets toward home, they spoke about traditions they wanted to continue. They talked about creating special holiday routines, baking together, and sharing stories by the fireplace. The conversation was light yet meaningful, filled with hope and a sense of shared purpose. They knew that the journey ahead would have challenges, but they also knew that together they could face them. Guided by the love and joy that had grown between them, arriving at their home, they settled in for a quiet evening. The children eagerly opened small gifts, laughed at simple surprises, and shared stories of their day. The man and the woman watched, hearts full, recognizing that these small moments were the foundation of the family they had begun to create. The home was filled with warmth, laughter, and the soft glow of lights, a reflection of the connection that had grown over time as the children drifted off to sleep. The adults sat together, reflecting on the journey that had begun a year ago. They spoke quietly about hopes for the future, shared dreams for their children, and the simple joy of having found each other. There was no rush, no need to define everything immediately, just a shared understanding that they were building something lasting, meaningful, and full of love. The story of that first Christmas Eve, the spilled cup of hot chocolate, and the chance encounter that had brought them together was no longer just a memory. It had become the foundation of their lives. Their daughters, once strangers, had become companions and friends, guiding the adults toward a life of connection and joy. The whispered wish of a small child had reminded them of the power of innocence, hope, and love to transform hearts and shape the future. As the night settled, the man and the woman held hands, feeling a quiet peace and happiness that came from shared experiences, mutual care, and the recognition of something rare and beautiful. They had learned that love could arrive in unexpected ways. That family could be created not just by blood but by choice, and that the smallest voices often carried the greatest truths. The story closed not with dramatic declarations or sudden revelations, but with the simple, enduring reality of life together. A blended family, united by laughter, care, and the gentle guidance of children's hearts, had found its rhythm, and in that rhythm there was a deep, abiding sense of belonging, hope, and joy. A story that had begun on a snowy Christmas Eve and would continue to grow, quietly, beautifully, and meaningfully. One day at a time, the winter after their first Christmas together had arrived, bringing with it a sense of new beginnings. The man and the woman had grown even closer over the months, and their children were now more than just friends. They were companions who eagerly awaited every shared moment. It was a Saturday morning when the two families decided to take a day trip to a nearby winter festival in the countryside. The crisp air, snow-covered fields, twinkling lights promised a day filled with joy and adventure. The children ran ahead as soon as they arrived, their laughter echoing through the open space. They chased each other, played in the snow, and built small forts with fresh powder. The man and the woman followed, carrying a small backpack with snacks and warm drinks. Watching the children, they felt a quiet happiness, knowing that the bonds they were nurturing would shape their lives in meaningful ways. The sight of the children laughing together brought warmth to their hearts. Reinforcing the gentle connection that had formed between them, they began the day with a walk along the main path, lined with small stalls selling handmade ornaments, treats, and winter crafts. The children eagerly explored, stopping at every corner to admire a toy or taste a sweet treat. The adults walked slowly behind them, sharing observations and quietly learning more about each other. Conversation was light but meaningful, flowing naturally from topic to topic. They spoke about childhood memories, favorite holiday traditions, and small joys that had brightened their week. The comfort of being together was evident in their easy smiles and relaxed manner. At one point, he stopped at a stall selling hot cocoa. The man bought 4 steaming cups, careful to remember each child's favorite flavor. The children held their drinks, blowing gently on the hot liquid, savoring the warmth. The woman laughed at a small mishap when a little splash landed on the snow, and the man joined in, both sharing a moment of lighthearted humor. It was the ordinary moments like these that strengthened their connection, making life feel simple, beautiful, and shared. After the cocoa, they wandered toward a small skating rink. Neither adult was an experienced skater, but they joined the children, holding their hands as they attempted to balance on the ice. The children giggled, wobbling but enjoying every moment. The adults laughed at each other's missteps, feeling a shared sense of fun and camaraderie. The experience was a reminder that joy could be found in the simplest activities, and that moments of imperfection often became the most cherished memories. Later, the families gathered around a large bonfire set up for festival goers. The warmth of the flames contrasted with the cold air, creating a cozy atmosphere. They roasted marshmallows and shared small stories about past winters and favorite holidays. The children cuddled close, tired from a day of play, but still full of excitement. The adults exchanged glances, recognizing how naturally their lives had intertwined. There was no need for declarations or dramatic gestures. The bond was clear in their shared laughter, gentle care, and quiet understanding. As the evening approached, They decided to take a walk along a snow-covered trail lined with soft lights. The children held hands, skipping ahead while the adults walked side by side, their conversations becoming more personal. They spoke about their hopes for the future, their dreams for their children, and the ways in which life had surprised them. The woman shared a memory of the first Christmas Eve when they had met, and the man recounted how that small accident at the coffee shop had led to a series of moments that changed his life. They laughed, reflected, and marveled at how life could bring unexpected joy when least expected. Along the trail, they came across a small frozen pond. The children were fascinated and began carefully exploring the edge, testing the ice and making small patterns. The adults watched, offering guidance and encouragement, feeling a shared sense of responsibility and joy. In that quiet moment, they realized how much their lives had grown together, not just in shared experiences, but in mutual understanding and trust. The bond between them was no longer fragile or tentative. It had become a foundation for a life they were building together. As they walked back toward the festival's main area, they noticed a small group performing carols. The music was soft and melodic, and the children were drawn toward it, clapping and singing along. The adults followed, feeling the warmth of community and celebration. They stood together, hands occasionally brushing, and felt the quiet reassurance that they were creating a family built on care, love, and shared joy. The simple act of enjoying music together, surrounded by laughter and the glow of lights, strengthened the sense of belonging they had cultivated over the past months. After the carols, they gathered at a small table to share a final snack. The children were tired but happy, recounting the day's adventures with excitement. The adults listened, smiled, and offered gentle encouragement, appreciating the innocent perspective the children brought to life. Conversation turned towards small plans for the week ahead, routines, and activities. Yet beneath the surface, there was a growing awareness of the deeper connection they had nurtured, a bond of friendship, care, and something more profound. On the way home, the families walked slowly through the snowy streets, the children holding onto their parents' hands, feeling safe and cherished. The man and the woman spoke quietly, reflecting on how life had shifted since that first chance encounter. They marveled at the unexpected ways in which connections could grow, guided by simple acts of kindness, shared experiences, and the gentle influence of children's hearts. There was a sense of gratitude, recognition that life's surprises could bring profound joy. When they arrived at their homes, the children were eager to share their day's memories and small treasures. The adults watched, feeling a sense of accomplishment and fulfillment. The warmth of family, both given and received, filled the rooms, creating a comforting sense of home. They knew that this was more than a temporary happiness. It was the foundation of a life that would continue to grow, shaped by love, patience, and shared experiences. As the night drew to a close, the man and the woman sat together in quiet reflection. They spoke about the journey that had begun on a snowy Christmas Eve, the moments of laughter, care, and gentle connection that had shaped their lives. They acknowledged the role of their children, whose innocence and hope had guided them, and the unexpected ways in which love could enter a life, slowly but surely. There was no need for grand gestures. The strength of their bond was evident in the simple, meaningful moments they shared every day. The story of their connection was not one of sudden romance, but of steady growth, shaped by trust, understanding, and the shared joy of raising children. Each day had brought new lessons, new experiences, and new opportunities to deepen their bond. They had learned that love could arrive quietly, in ordinary moments made extraordinary by care, patience, and attention. They had discovered that family was not just about circumstance, but about choice, about nurturing connections and creating a sense of belonging as they finally bid goodnight. The warmth of the day lingered in their hearts. The children, now asleep, dreamed of snowy adventures and playful friendships, unaware of the quiet significance of the adult's journey. The man and the woman reflected on how far they had come, the unexpected twists of fate that had brought them together, and the gentle, unspoken promise of the future. In that quiet winter night, they felt a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. The journey that began with a chance meeting, a spilled cup of hot chocolate, Yet a whispered wish had evolved into something enduring, meaningful, and beautiful. They had found love, not in dramatic gestures, but in shared moments, laughter, and the gentle guidance of their children's hearts. And as they looked toward the future, they knew that the story was far from over. It would continue to grow, quietly, naturally, and beautifully, one day at a time.